Hey guys, welcome to this week's vlog. And this week I wanted to talk to you about worry. So the meditation is an anxiety meditation, and this was another one that was, it was by request by one of our lovely listeners. So someone that I really enjoyed kind of getting to know via email. And so she asked me to do an anxiety meditation, but I wanted to talk today not just about anxiety, but to talk about worry. And there was a concept that one of my teachers once shared with me, and she was telling this story. Her husband was a firefighter, and she said every time that the phone went off in the middle of the night and her husband had to leave in the middle of the night to go fight a fire, she would lay there and she would just worry and worry and worry, and just for hours, and would just lay there awake until he came back. And she did that every single time. And she's telling me the story, and I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I would probably do the same thing. And it wasn't until she came to the realization that every time that she did that, and she was laying there, she was worrying, and she was imagining something tragic happening to her husband, and you know, that maybe he didn't come home or whatever it is, that she was putting herself through the pain of that worst case scenario every single time. And I remember her telling that story so vividly, because it not only resonated with me then, but it's something that has stuck with me just for forever since she told me that. Because I think about just how many times I've put myself through worst case scenarios, through worrying, and how much harm I'm probably doing to my body and my mind and my heart. And so to me, this really ties into anxiety, because, and as someone that has struggled with anxiety, I get it. And, you know, just telling someone, oh, don't worry so much, you'll be fine. That's not it. I mean, if you've really struggled with anxiety, you know, it's not like you can just turn off the light switch and say, oh, don't worry about it. But if you are just worrying about something, thinking about how if that thing never happened. So, for example, like, I really worry and I get anxiety if I, like, let's say I made breakfast in the morning and, like, I made eggs and I left the burner on, and then I go to work and I leave Mila here, my dog. I get anxiety about, what if I forgot to turn off the burner, and what if the house catches on fire and she's in it? And this is just this fear that I have had ever since I've gotten her. And anything, if I have a curling iron in and I've curled my hair, and then I think, what if I didn't turn it off, or what if it was still hot, and I'm just so worried that the house is going to catch on fire and she's going to be stuck in it and she's going to die. And I know that's really morbid, but if that happened, I would be devastated. Like, I can't even describe. I mean, those of you that know me, even if you just, I mean, you probably don't even have to know me to know that I'm like one of those crazy dog moms. But if that were to happen, I would just be gutted. But when I try to remind myself, when I have that anxiety about it, and it is like real anxiety, like it gets in the way of my day, this worry, I try to remind myself that every time I worry about it, I am putting myself through the pain and the agony of that thing, of that loss. Where if I just can let it go, set it off to the side, not let it run through my head, and it never happens, then I never have to go through that pain. And that has totally transformed the way that I look at anxiety and that I look at worry. Because usually, for me at least, it starts as worry, and then that worry can grow into anxiety. So when I'm starting to experience an anxiety, I think about, okay, what is the root of that thing? So the example I told you, it's not like I have a huge fear of fire, but to me, the worry is the loss of, you know, my fur baby, my most special thing. Like, that's what my fear is. And then I try to step back again. I say, okay, that's that's the fear because she's so special to me. And I try to identify what it is, and then I think more logically, say, okay, I'm worried about this, and it's kind of manifesting as this fear of, the house is going to catch on fire. So stepping back and saying, if that never happened, I will never have to go through it. But if I sit here and I worry about it over and over and over, and I just think about the pain and the agony, I am going through that pain and that agony every single time. And I've gone through that loss thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of times. And that has just stuck with me so much. And so even if it's something bigger or something smaller, if it's just a small worry, like let's say I am just anxious because I'm going into work and I know that I'm going to have a tough conversation or have an uncomfortable interaction or something like that, and it worries me, that's when I can step back and say, okay, if I continue to worry about it, I have to live through it over and over and over and over, or if I can just let it go, I can enjoy my life in this moment and then either deal with it the one time when it happens, or it doesn't happen and I never have to experience it. And that has just transformed the way that I looked at things. And so I wanted to share it with you guys. And I know that it's easier said than done, but really do try it. Try stepping back and saying, okay, what is this worry? What is this anxiety? Like, what is the root of it? And what is really that fear? And how are you making yourself live through that agony and that fear every single time when you worry about it? And hopefully that helps you. And I know it might just be like a little drop in the bucket, but at least that bucket's a little bit fuller. And yeah, I hope that it helps you. It's something that's really helped me with my anxiety and my worry, and it really has changed the way that I look at those things. So if you haven't checked out the meditation, it's called SOS Anxiety. I will, of course, link it below. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks, guys. See you next week.